What's good, everyone? Matt here from UK Nets Fans, and I'm joined by a very special guest indeed. You'll know him, of course, as one of the key pieces in the Nets on Yes broadcast team, and the man that can rock a turtleneck better than anyone else in the business is Michael Grady. Michael, thanks for giving us your time. How are you doing today?
Doing well. Good to be on with you. Appreciate you having me.
Thank you. The pleasure is all mine, absolutely. I wanted to go back and talk about your 15, 16 years in broadcasting. You started off your career in your hometown of Indianapolis, producing radio shows and doing voiceover work before becoming an executive producer by the time you were 24. You then joined the Indiana Pacers as an in-arena MC and a PA announcer, co-hosted a sports talk show before getting your sportscaster position in 2014 as the Pacers made that run to the Eastern Conference Finals. You also do color commentary. You've worn a lot of hats in your broadcasting career. There's seemingly nothing you can't do. Was it always the plan to go into sports broadcasting?
It was, I would say, from about 16 years old. Even before that, there were little seeds planted that would kind of shape my future. But I think it all came full circle around my junior year of high school when I realized that this is, absolutely what I want to do when I was doing play-by-play for the high school basketball team. So, and they made a long run in the Indiana high school basketball tournament, and just following them along and following that journey and being a part of telling their stories, even though it was on that high school level, it was amazing. And so whatever it took, I loved every aspect of sports broadcasting and broadcasting in general. So whatever was thrown my way, I was happy to take it on and just see where the journey would take me.
And this brought you here to the Nets, and we couldn't be any more thankful. You once said that Reggie Miller was like Black Panther to you growing up as a Pacers fan. What are some of your earliest basketball memories? And then what was it like to be able to work with the organization that you grew up loving?
Um, you know, I wish I knew the moment that sparked me. I know my family was all into sports. My mom was into sports, basketball, football, tennis, a number of different things, and so that kind of piqued my interest. The first memory I have of basketball was probably 89, 90, watching the Detroit Pistons win their two championships. The only reason I remember that is because my grandfather got me a Detroit Pistons basketball that said back-to-back world champions on it. And I remember wearing that basketball out. And then it was a few short years later, the Pacers started to come onto the scene and started to make a name for themselves. And what bigger stage to make a name for yourself than against the Knicks at Madison Square Garden. And so seeing what Reggie Miller was able to do on that stage, defiantly. Even at a young age, I knew Indiana was, it was small compared to, New York and how big New York was and how, massive, the Garden was and what that meant to people, not just in New York, but across the globe. Like that's the Garden, that's the Mecca. And so to see Reggie Miller and the Pacers go in there and defiantly make plays, have these spectacular moments, it just gave you a great sense of pride, like I could accomplish anything. I know it was sports, but if Reggie could go into that environment with everybody, jeering him and hating him and throwing out all type of stuff, Spike Lee and all that, and for him to go out there and have the audacity to have that kind of performance and walk out with the win, whether it's the 25-point fourth quarter or the 8 points in 9 seconds, made me feel like I can do anything. Going back to the Black Panther comment, in the same way that watching a superhero growing up would, making you feel like you can have these, powers. And so I just kind of applied that, to my own life, and it was amazing to watch them growing up as a kid. And so yeah, to have the opportunity years later to be asked to do PA and do other things associated with the franchise, I just can't stress enough how mind-blowing that was for me to grow up cheering them on and then to be asked to be a part of the franchise in any capacity was an amazing treat for me at that time.
Absolutely. Yeah, it must be crazy. So in 2017, you made the switch to New York. Is it true that you sort of sorted your first agent or your first representative thanks to an Uber driver?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's one of my It's one of my favorite stories. You know, everybody has a different story on how they were able to navigate this business and the heights that they were able to get to, or how they met impactful people in their lives. And so I went to IUPUI for a short time for school after leaving Vincennes, which was a great broadcasting school. IUPUI is right there in the heart of Indianapolis, and I was going through communication studies. And I can't remember the name of my professor, but he just, you know, took a liking to me and the fact that the way I applied myself, and he was aware of what I was doing, because while I was taking classes, I was also doing stuff on the local radio station at the time. And he just thought it was really cool that, you know, someone he listens to on the radio, even though I was doing small things at that particular time, happened to be in his class. And so years later, you know, I'm slowly but surely moving and doing things in Indianapolis, and the Final Four was in Indy. And that professor decided to drive for Uber during that Final Four weekend. Surge prices were high, and he figured I'd just make some, you know, make some extra cash. And he happened to pick up a guy that he struck up a conversation with, and found out that he was an agent, you know, for and a representative for media personalities. And my professor told him, "Hey, I don't know if he has representation, but you should reach out to a former student of mine." And you know, to the agent's credit, you know, he did his homework, found stuff of me online, liked what he saw, found my email address, sent me an email. And I probably held off for a while because I was, you know, I had radio in Indianapolis. You know, I think by that point I was getting ready to start to do TV in Indianapolis, was a PA announcer. I was home, my whole family's in Indy. Do I really want to agent and leave this comfort zone? I mean, I'm from Indianapolis. Nobody's going to fire me. Everything has got a cushy gig here. But I would say maybe 5-6 months later, I reached back out and said, "Hey, let's have a conversation." Flew out to New York to meet him and the people at the office, and I was sold. I was sold, and his name is Jeff. And we signed a contract not long after that. And he was the one that found me the opportunity in Brooklyn, New York with Yes Network, man. And I couldn't be more thankful. And so, yeah, if my professor didn't decide to drive for Uber that weekend, if he was not a social person and decided not to spark a conversation in the car, I probably wouldn't be talking to you here today. I would be doing something else, probably still in media, but I don't know that I would be here talking to you about the Brooklyn Nets today.
That's crazy. I think it's the measure of a man is what people say about them in sort of when they're not around. So I think you've obviously made a great impression of him, and that's just testament to your character as a person. But taking us into the Nets, the Yes Network, you did make the switch from Indy to Brooklyn, and you've joined the incomparable team at the Nets Yes Network. Your team is clearly very close and has a reputation as the best in the business. What's it been like working with the likes of Iron Eagle, Sarah Kustok, RJ, and Ryan Ruocco?
Well, it sounds corny when we say it all the time, but it really is a family atmosphere. And I didn't know what to expect when I came to New York. You know, coming from Indiana, you know, Indianapolis, you know, definitely small. And I wouldn't say small town. You know, it's a decent sized media market, but compared to a New York or a Los Angeles or even a nearby Chicago, you know, it's small. And so it's, you know a lot of people in the city, kind of small town. In New York being so massive, so many different people, and you hear all these stories. You know, they're kind of rude, they're a little edgy, they're a little, you know, whatever it may be. And so I didn't know what to expect when coming over. But everybody on the staff has been amazing. And they just welcomed me with open arms, not just the Yes Network community, but the Brooklyn community welcomed me with open arms. But doing these broadcasts with Ian, someone who's so open, someone who has taught me so much and is open to teaching others. He's not someone who just wants to keep his, you know, toolkit to himself. But he is amazing at offering advice, at being encouraging at the same time. And so for a broadcaster who still has, you know, a lot of aspirations, you know, with Yes Network and beyond, it's just amazing to be around someone like that who's teaching me so much. And Ryan is such a a bright star already, and has been one for a long time, and continues to climb and grow. And it's been great working with him and his energy. And Sarah Kustok quickly became a sister, and she is an amazing broadcaster, an amazing analyst, and but an even better person. And she is a huge star in this industry. And so to be that talented at what she does, and then to also be such an open and gracious individual. She's really the heartbeat of what we do at Yes Network. And RJ, I remember I was at a Pacers game, Pacers playoff game, and the Pacers were playing the Nets, and I remember RJ had this big dunk in the middle of the lane, and I'm just like, oh man, this dude. And it's crazy because I was there as a fan that day, and to fast forward to today and to be colleagues, and it's and how quickly he's taken to this industry. It was always in the cards for him, obviously, but just a great personality, great sense of humor, great analysis, great perspective given the number of teams that he's been on and the different personalities and star players that he's been able to work with. So he has a great, unique perspective and is a big part of our team. And beyond that, Frank DeGrace is our, amazing, producer. Dan Barr is our, current director. Ryan Rutherford, Ian Riley. We have a great number of guys and people in the studio too who do a terrific job as well. So the entire team is definitely a family.
Good. Well, that's something that's always really fascinated me, and like I'm not. It's a funny thing to say out loud, but like the amount of teamwork and the amount of work that has to go into creating such a slick product on the TV for us fans who can just sit back and pop open a beer and watch the game. Like it's always something that's fascinated me. So what does a typical game day routine look like for you in the broadcast team?
Well, I mean, we're even when we're off the clock, we're on the clock. We're always finding little nuggets. We're reading little articles. The Nets have a practice today, and so we'll have conversation with players and Steve Nash after the practice, and just trying to get an idea of what this team is all about, their identity that they're trying to develop, their mindset, heading into each and every game over the course of this, even though it's a condensed season, it's still a long season. So it's just trying to have a better understanding and figure out the stories that you want to tell and how you want to tell them. And that's a day-to-day process. And so, so on a game day, Frank DeGrace does a great job of sending us little nuggets, storylines headed into the game, an outline for the broadcast from pregame through post-game. Ian's working on what he needs to work on to get ready for the game. Sarah's doing her thing. If it's Ryan, he's getting himself prepared. I'm thinking about what questions I want to ask the coach and the players just before the game, and then how things will go in the stories that we may tell during the game. So you may have some stuff prepared, and then you just kind of see how the game flows and how you want to insert this nugget, that storyline, or whatever it may be. So yeah, our job, really just, storytellers, and being the liaison between these great players and this amazing fan base. And so that's really the goal each and every night. And it's exciting. I mean, we have a lot of fun on the broadcast, and I love the sense of humor. I'm someone who's real lighthearted and loves to joke, doesn't take things too seriously. And so I just felt like I fit right in with Ian, his sense of humor, Sarah, her sense of humor, Ryan, the same respect, RJ. But in the same way that we can be entertaining, we're going to break the game down and do an amazing job with that too. So it's work hard, play hard. And when you're prepared, I feel like it takes a lot of pressure off, and we make sure that we come into every game as prepared as we can be.
Absolutely. You took the words right out of my mouth. You guys just seem to embody that work hard, play hard. And as long as you're confident in the work that you've done, then that means you can kind of show off that chemistry that you guys clearly have. And if you could bottle that, then you'd be on to a winner. But you touched on it there, like with with a background in, talk radio and all that kind of longer form discussion about sports and everything going around it, what are the challenges that kind of present themselves when you've only got a minute or 3 questions or something with a player or a coach who've just come out of the game and their head's still whirring? Does that have any kind of unique challenges to it?
I think you get in a rhythm over time. I think when I started, I think the main thing for me is if I just, one thing is preparation. And then if I'm prepared, then I can be, confident. And that really goes back to an Arthur Ashe quote that I've kind of kept close to heart, and I always remind myself of, the key to success is self-confidence, and the key to self-confidence is preparation. And so when I first started, I'm, close to all these different personalities, players and things like that. It was D'Angelo Russell at the time when I first got there, and I'm as close to a team as I've ever been. I didn't travel with the Pacers. I was, just working home games and doing TV and radio and covering that team. But with the Nets, I'm on the road. I'm all over the place with these guys. And so, yeah, it can be intimidating, but I feel like guys can smell that intimidation. I think guys can smell that fear. And so one thing that I've always tried to psych myself out on is just to be confident, even if I don't know what I'm doing. Even I would say not, I don't know what I'm doing, but if it's the first time that I've done something, I'm going to look like it's the 1,000th time that I've done it. And that's just a mental mind frame that I try to have when I step into something. And so, that's really the main thing. Make sure that I'm prepared, and then just step in confident, and just remind myself that I'm here for a reason. And so, could players look at you crazy given a certain question? Could they not be ready for a certain question, whatever it may be? Yes, but I try to be careful with the way that I ask questions. I try to be careful with the way that I frame questions, because trust is so important when you're talking about a courtside reporter and his relationship with a player. So I try to be careful with the way that the questions are framed. I definitely give thought into what I want to get out of this interview and what I think the fans care to get out of certain interviews. And so that may be a big picture question, and maybe a small picture question in terms of, Coach, tell me about this, this game and what you're looking for in this game or this particular player, or, this guy's been doing this over the course of the past couple of weeks or over the course of the last 5 games. Give me some backstory on this, or what's been the focus in practice lately, whatever it may be, to help share the story of what's happening with the team right now. So yeah, I wouldn't say pressure is the word. And I try to shy away from any sort of language or rhetoric that may psych me out, or go, oh man, this is a big moment, or this is whatever. This is the, I just try to take it, game by game, moment by moment. Treat, Kevin, don't get psyched out. You're talking to Kevin Durant. I've been doing this for, a long time, but I want to get to know Kevin, because the better I get to know him, the better the fans can get to know Kevin, Kyrie, Spencer, Karis, Jared, DJ, all those guys.
Good stuff. You said this is like the closest you've really been to a team. So you joined the Nets, the Yes Network, after the Nets had that 20-win season. And now we stand at the precipice of a season with KD, as you mentioned, and Kyrie Irving leading a team who have very, very real championship aspirations. As someone who is so close to the Nets, are you surprised that their fortunes had turned around so quickly?
No. There was, man, I grew up like connecting all of the dots here, like a big music guy, and especially with hip hop. And so Biggie and the whole Bad Boy era, that whole thing, and then it was Jay-Z, and it was just a huge, Jay-Z guy. And those guys are always proud and about their, connection to Brooklyn. And I just love the New York sound, love the New York vibe. And when I first visited New York, it felt comfortable, as crazy as that may sound, because of how much I entrenched myself in the music. And I'm around a lot of people who, even in Indiana and in the Midwest, who just had this great affinity for, New York and the artists who came out of New York, whether it's Nas and Queens, or DMX, or Wu-Tang, or whatever it may be. just a strong connection to New York, even though some of us had never visited New York. And so just the way that people up Brooklyn and pop culture and growing up in that, when the team announced that they were moving from New Jersey to Brooklyn, I just had a feeling that that was going to pop. You know, they needed stars for sure. But once you're able to get stars to Brooklyn and the way the Brooklyn community continues to grow, and it's just cool. I mean, there's really no other way to put it. It's just cool. I figured at some point, someone would break the mold, join the Nets, really get the ball rolling. Did I ever envision that it would be guys the caliber of a Kevin Durant and a Kyrie Irving? No, but a return to relevancy. Absolutely. It's just the kind of franchise that they have. Sean Marks has been a godsend to navigate through that, that trade with, Paul Pierce and Kevin Durant, losing all those draft picks, and for him to do what he was able to do, get a system in place where they have a great player development staff, giving Kenny Atkinson his credit too with what he was able to do with so many of the guys on the roster, watching Karis LeVert develop, Joe Harris develop, Jared Allen develop, and set that foundation. And not only that, I got to give credit to the guys who knew that they wouldn't be here to see the team get to the promised land, but still balled out despite that. DeMarre Carroll, Jared Dudley, there are guys in that ballpark. D'Angelo Russell playing a significant role as well. Trevor Booker, Rondae Hollis Jefferson given his time. There are a number of guys who were a part of this, and even before that, I can go even before that, but that played a big role in setting the foundation for the culture that Kyrie and Kevin found appealing to want to join. So yeah, I didn't know it would be to this magnitude again, but I figured eventually, Brooklyn being Brooklyn, it would eventually pop.
Yeah, that sounds so familiar. I mean, you're talking to a guy that's across an ocean, and we do a weekly podcast about this Nets team, and it's exactly the same. It's you go over and visit, and it just feels so familiar because of all the cultural impact that it has. So that's definitely something that I completely see where you're coming from. Obviously, as you touched on, KD and Kyrie are going to get most of the attention from the media and from Nets fans, along with our core guys that have been here for a long time, like Karis and Spencer and Joe and Jarrett. Who have you heard that has been impressing in practice that's kind of going under the radar that you think is going to get some attention from Net fans as this season progresses?
That question's been asked a lot, and nobody has really come up consistently. In past years, everybody was raving about Karis LeVert and what they were seeing from him. Really, the past couple of years, people have been raving about Karis. Now it's something that they expect. Spencer is seeing what we see from Spencer is something you expect. Joe Harris as a utility guy, a Swiss Army knife, who can do a little bit of everything. There's an expectation there. Jared Allen, we're looking forward to continuing to see, his growth. So I think there's nobody necessarily that's under the radar. I think as time goes on, guys like Bruce Brown may get his opportunities. People like what they've seen in a short amount of time from Reggie Perry, even though he is so young. I wish that Nick Claxton was not dealing with the knee injury, because I feel like he is someone that we would be talking about in that regard. So I'm hoping that he's able to get back to full strength very soon. But each of these guys have balled out, and a number of guys have said this is the most competitive training camp that they had ever been a part of.
Absolutely, yes. I think with Nick Claxton especially, there's been so much hype about how impressive he's been sort of internally. It was going to be great to see him come back, and especially as a sort of position of need within the Nets, I think. So as UK-based basketball fans and Nets fans, we're lucky that our team plays in Brooklyn, and they call the city their home. So as a holiday destination, there's plenty to do. So in your eyes, if someone had one day or one weekend in Brooklyn, what would you recommend they see to get a feel of the city? What would they do?
I would say have breakfast or brunch. And this is in a normal
Sorry, yeah.
environment post COVID. But of course you want to take in a game, because I believe that Barclays Center, even though it's approaching a decade, in terms of how long it's been around, I still think it's one of the better arenas in the entire NBA. And so you definitely want to visit Barclays Center. And I can't even imagine what it's going to be like when fans are allowed back in the building. But Sweet Chick is my favorite, brunch spot, to get some good chicken and waffles. That's a great spot to go to. Great vibe in there. You got to go to Dumbo and soak in and take in the views there. Some really good places to eat, but on a nice warm day, that's a beautiful spot. Brooklyn Heights is a nice place to go to along the water as well, with more views, and you can get there walking along Dumbo. You got to get a great pizza slice, and there are a couple of great places right there in the Dumbo area where you could do that too. Yeah, make your way to Bed-Stuy. Walk through, check out old stomping grounds of Biggie Smalls. We talked about a little bit earlier. There's just a lot. It's just a lot, and really just walking around and just people watching, man. There's a pulse to Brooklyn, unlike any other place that I have been, that I just absolutely adore. And so really just walking around, even if you go to the Atlantic Avenue Barclays Center area and just kind of walking around there, I think everybody will enjoy it.
Good stuff. I've been once and I need to go back, but yeah, yeah, I'll get there. So
Yes, you have to.
Anyone that follows you on Instagram knows that you're as talented behind the camera as you are in front of it, as you're a keen photographer. Where's the spot you'd recommend in the city that you most like taking photos of? Best photo opportunity?
Ooh, the Dumbo area is great. I've done a lot of photo shoots in that area, and some great spots. Is that famous spot where it's between a couple of buildings and you see that view of the Manhattan Bridge there. We use a shot of that in our Yes Network intro montage, which is a nice famous spot. But the views there are amazing, of the Brooklyn Bridge and then into Manhattan, and getting shots there too. So that's fantastic. There's rooftops around that area to where you can get an even better view. But that's probably, from a scenic standpoint, a great spot. But you can't go wrong. There's a lot of great areas along there. But I would say that area, for the views alone, will give you some great photography material.
Nice. Do it for the gram, if nothing else.
Yeah.
So you grew up a big fan of Ahmad Rashad on NBA Inside Stuff, saying you like to get our players' personalities out there beyond just presenting them as basketball players. And you've taken Jarrett Allen on tours of Chinatown, sort of talking about getting around the city. What have been some of unexpected interests or talents you've seen from this team away from basketball?
Everybody, I'd say music is the big thing that a lot of guys are getting into. And I think since quarantine, a lot of guys started taking it a little bit more seriously. And so Torian Prince is a guy that's very serious about his music. Kevin Durant divulged that he's been, doing music and tinkering with it for a while. Kyrie Irving is, showcased some of his music on his on IG Live not long ago, something that he's messed around with. Folks know, following Jared Allen since he joined the Nets, that he's just a big computer nerd, can take them apart, put them together. Plays a lot of video games, but also studies. I found wild the soundtracks of video games and the mood that the video game tries to put you in through music. And so he plays like Legend of Zelda, and has analyzed the music that they utilize in that game, which is just, I don't know, it's wild. Spencer Dinwiddie with all the stuff that he's into. I mean, he's into a lot of different things, of course, a lot of business endeavors and things like that. But also we're really into cooking, and prides himself as being a big time cook. Karis looks like he's gotten heavy into fashion now, and so he's a whole Instagram influencer now. Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. And his what he was wearing that first game against Golden State was different. So he's embraced his artistic side from a fashion standpoint, and I'm all for it. And then yeah, Joe Harris got the tattoos, family, keeping that close to mind. But even his style is kind of, I noticed after that first game, he's kind of taking a step in a different direction as far as fashion is concerned, and I'm here for that too. So, yeah, I love tapping into the personalities of these guys and getting to know them, because again, that means the fan base is getting to know them too. So Instagram's going to have its place, social media is going to have its place, to where you can kind of get to know these guys and they can reveal things about themselves in their own voice. But I'll always feel like there's going to be a need for Ahmad Rashad on every team to kind of chip away at the layers of these guys a little bit, because I know it means a lot to the fan base.
It certainly does. Michael, you've been really, really generous with your time. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming on BKT UK and having a chat. But I thought I'd sneak in one more question, and I'm going to ask you to make a prediction for this year. Is 2021 the year that we see the Larry O'Brien Trophy come to Brooklyn?
Ooh, that is a really good question. I'm going to chicken out and not go that far. I will go as far as to say that I believe right now, if this team can stay healthy, I believe right now that the Nets will represent the Eastern Conference in the NBA Finals. Beating the Lakers or even the Clippers or whatever it may be, that would be tough, and I can handicap that when we get to that time. And it may be bold enough to say that the Nets, in their first year together, is going to beat everybody else in the Eastern Conference. Given how tough Milwaukee will be, Boston will be, Philadelphia will be, Miami you can't forget about. So there are some teams that are going to have something to say about this. But I feel, given the versatility of this roster, the number of ways in which Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving can score, if you take away one aspect of their game, they can hurt you in another area. And I can't say that about some of the other great players in the Eastern Conference. Jason Tatum is developing a guy to where if you take one thing away, he can hurt you in another way. But Giannis hurts you just going downhill. Philadelphia, Ben Simmons just hurts you going downhill. You force them into being jump shooters, they can't hurt you that way. So if you cut off the lane for a Kevin Durant or a Kyrie Irving, they'll just shoot jump shots on you all day. If you crowd them, they'll get by you. If you do find a way to slow them down somewhat, you still have Karis LeVert, Spencer Dinwiddie, you still got Joe, you still have a number of guys. So I'm not just saying this as if I'm a homer. I'm saying this because I really believe that this roster has a lot of weapons on it. Two of the most talented offensive guys in the league, and if they continue to work on that defense, they could very well be holding up the Larry O'Brien Trophy come July.
It ain't bragging if it's true. Do you know what I mean? It's a bit of pick your poison for the opposing teams. I don't envy them at all. Well, if Grady thinks that the Nets are coming out the East, it's got to happen, right? Again, thanks for joining me today. And if you could do me one more favor just before we go, is if you could just let Josai, Sean Marks, and everyone at the Nets know that 3,000 miles away across the Atlantic, there's a bunch of Net fans wishing them a healthy and safe rest of the season. And we're hoping we can travel back in time for that parade up Atlantic Avenue.
Oh, we'd love to see it, and I definitely will. And we appreciate you guys, and it's awesome to see the strength of this fan base, even overseas, and that's amazing. And hope to see again in the parade. You all have to be here. Would love to see it, my man.
It's the date. Thanks very much, Michael.
Appreciate you.